Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, is caught in the throes of a Macbethian dilemma: to join the war or to not join the war. That is the question. This will be Donald Trump's biggest decision of his political career. So when Benjamin Netanyahu started this war against Iran with his Operation Rising Lion, the objective was clear: to destroy Iran's nuclear program and to effect a regime change in Tehran that was expected to change the face of the Middle East forever. But what has unfolded since on the battlefield has meant that the face of the Middle East has indeed changed forever, but not in the manner that Netanyahu or Donald Trump had expected. Never in the last 7 decades of the Israeli history have cities such as Tel Aviv and Haifa faced the brunt of a reprisal that has reduced parts of Tel Aviv and Haifa into rubble. The aura of Israeli invulnerability and invincibility has been dented. And now, even top Israeli leaders such as Yoav Gallant are publicly admitting that Israel started this war, but they hope that the United States can now jump in and finish the war. Our next report gets you more details. Benjamin Netanyahu is in some unfamiliar territory. At first glance, this may look like the bombed rubble of Gaza. But this is Tel Aviv, and the group of people who are surveying the area are Benjamin Netanyahu and his close aides and advisors, taking stock of the situation at the once prestigious Weizmann Institute that has suffered some serious damage in an Iranian ballistic missile strike. But even after more than a week of this war, Benjamin Netanyahu's zeal to continue the fight hasn't diminished.
As long as it takes. That's the answer. As long as it takes, because we face an existential danger, a dual existential danger. One from 20,000 such rockets, 20,000, not one. This is one rocket, one missile. And the other is, of course, atomic bombs in the hands of this mad regime.
Israel's Operation Rising Lion was meant to take Iran by surprise. The decapitation attacks by Israel took out the complete top military leadership of Iran and caused extensive damage to Iran's nuclear facilities in places such as Natanz, Isfahan and Tehran. But Iran's counterattack by using sophisticated ballistic missiles has taken the Israeli and the American military leadership by complete surprise. In wave after wave, Tehran has hit back with saturation ballistic missile attacks that appear to have taken the wind out of the Israeli air defense systems. Admissions by the senior Israeli intelligence officials are troubling. Only 65% of the Iranian ballistic missiles are now being intercepted in comparison to the earlier 90%. Which means that more and more Iranian strikes are hitting their targets. What makes the situation even worse for Israel is that it is beginning to run low on the interceptor missiles for its air defense systems. And this is a deficit that not even the Americans are in a position to replenish due to the time that is required to produce these very high-tech interceptors. In a war of attrition, the Iranians clearly seem to have more ballistic missiles than the number of interceptor missiles in the hands of the Israelis. The IAEA chief Rafael Grossi has sounded a dire warning. If Israel stages an attack on Iran's Bushehr nuclear facility, then it would result in some very high levels of radiation leaks that would spread hundreds of kilometers outside of Bushehr.
At present, the competent Iranian authorities have confirmed that the Natanz enrichment site has been impacted and that there are no elevated radiation levels. They have also reported that at present the Esfahan and Fordow sites have not been impacted. This development is deeply concerning. I have repeatedly stated that nuclear facilities must never be attacked, regardless of the context or circumstances, as it could harm both people and the environment. I quote, "Any armed attack on and threat against nuclear facilities devoted to peaceful purposes constitutes a violation of the principles of the United Nations Charter, international law, and the statute of the agency."
So the military option to bomb and disrupt Iran's nuclear facilities was not a viable one to begin with. And now, the former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has written an opinion piece in the Times, exhorting the United States of America to get involved militarily to finish the job that Israel started. But in his assessment, Donald Trump is crystal clear. On its own, Israel hasn't got the capacity to take out Iran's nuclear facilities.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said that they had the capacity to take out all of Iran's nuclear facilities. So what role would the U.S. be able to play, and why would they, if Israel says that they have all of the abilities, their own military?
I'm not sure he said that, but they really have a very limited capacity. They can break through a little section, but they can't go down very deep. They don't have that capacity, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it won't be necessary. Maybe it won't be necessary.
So it now remains to be seen what the American president decides in his 2-week timeline. Will Donald Trump stay out of the war and let Israel try and finish the war that it began on its own? Or will he take the United States of America head first into another all-out war in the Middle East that the Israeli Prime Minister began with his Operation Rising Lion? Israel, claiming that Tehran was on the verge of building a nuclear bomb, began bombing Iran in the early hours of the 13th of June, ostensibly targeting its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Before Israel began its attacks, Iran had, according to the United States, the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East, with estimates varying from anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 missiles. Despite the Israeli Defense Forces claiming to have destroyed almost a third of Iran's surface-to-surface launchers, Iran has been firing wave after wave of missiles into Israel, many of which have penetrated the sophisticated Israeli air defense systems, causing mayhem on the ground. Our next report sheds some light on Iran's missile program, which appears to be changing the balance of power in the Middle East.
The Israel-Iran conflict, now in its second week, exhibits no sign of de-escalation. Tel Aviv, despite claiming air superiority over Tehran, has still not been able to achieve air dominance and nullify the threat of Iranian missiles. On Friday, raging fire and plumes of smoke billowed near a residential building in the southern Israeli city of Beersheba, following an Iranian missile strike, narrated a tale of Iranian defiance and resistance. Analysts are of the opinion that this gloves-off approach by Iran when it comes to retaliatory strikes against Israel is a significant departure from their initial approach of targeting specific military targets.
In the earlier rounds, the Iranians were trying to go after very specific military targets and Mossad in Tel Aviv. Now they're happy to bombard Tel Aviv, basically. So if they hit civilian areas, it's fine. So they're using a wider array of ballistic missiles. They don't have to be the latest ones, the ones with better guidance systems. So it's more of a gloves-off kind of approach from the Iranians in terms of the retaliation for the Israeli attacks.
The Israeli military in the initial days of the war had claimed that their much-vented air defense systems had an 80 to 90% success. The initial setbacks have compelled them to revise the rate of interception by their signature Iron Dome to 65%, a significant climb down. The conflict between Iran and Israel is attritional at the moment, and the key question emerging is, who among the long-standing enemies will run out of missiles?
It's a numbers game. It's how many ballistic missiles the Iranians have got versus how many interceptors the Israelis have got.
Iran's ballistic missile program, the largest in the Middle East, featuring a diverse range of short and medium-range ballistic missiles, originated during and after the 1980-1988 Iran-Iraq War. In a bid to deter Iraqi Scud attacks and compensate for its lack of modern air power, in addition to ballistic missiles, Iran has hypersonic missiles as well, a direct reaction to evolving and maturing ballistic missile defenses. Hypersonic missiles such as Fatah-2 are difficult for air defense systems to intercept, even if they are detected by radar. Additionally, Iran has a cruise missile, such as the Howitzer missile, in its arsenal, which have been used against Israel. While these cruise missiles are slower than ballistic missiles, they fly like pilotless planes, low and steady, sneaking past air defenses. Though Iran has taken significant damage, it has not pulled back its punches, hitting right back with its missiles. Amid the escalating tension, the unsettling sound of red alert sirens warning of incoming missile threat has fearful Israelis scrambling to bomb shelters.
Right now, I'm very scared. This situation, it's horrible to me and to all my family, and I can't go anywhere. It's very bad, and now I don't know what happened in the future.
Given the uncertain times, fraught with anxiety and danger being faced by Israelis, who are so far lulled into a false sense of security owing to their much lauded and talked about air defense systems, the question that comes to mind is, did Iranian missiles surprise America and shake Israel out of its slumber?
The Iran-Israel war, which commenced with an unilateral Israeli attack on Iran, dubbed Operation Rising Lion in the early hours of the 13th of June, is now in its second week with no sign of any off-ramp. The casualties of war include civilians who have been caught in the flashpoint areas facing waves of attacks. Considering that the warring nations don't share a border, the assault from both sides has been an airborne one. In recent history, Israel, which boasts of some of the most advanced missile defense systems in the world, has successfully intercepted many of the aerial attacks that came its way through these systems, such as its signature Iron Dome. But the Iranian ballistic missile strikes in this war have proven a point or two by breaching the much touted Israeli air defenses and hitting targets deep inside Israel. Our next report gets you more details.
Ever since Tehran launched a wave of retaliatory strikes on Israel, causing heavy damage and forcing Israelis across the country to seek cover in bomb shelters, the question on everyone's mind is how effective are the much vaunted Israeli air defense systems? At the heart of Israel's air defense is Iron Dome, a mobile all-weather air defense system. Co-developed by Israeli defense contractor Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and Israel Aerospace Industries. Designed to intercept and destroy short-range rockets and artillery shells, fired from distances of up to 70 kilometers away. From 2011 to 2021, the United States opened its purse strings, contributing a total of $1.6 billion to the Iron Dome defense system, which was first deployed on the 27th of March in 2011 near Beersheba in southern Israel. In 2022, the US Congress approved another $1 billion towards the endeavor. Reportedly, since its first deployment, the Iron Dome defense system has successfully shot down 90% of rockets launched towards Israel from Iran, Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Houthis in Yemen. In the next tier above Iron Dome is David's Sling, also renowned as the Magic Wand. Jointly developed by the Israeli defense contractor Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and the American defense contractor Raytheon. David's Sling, which started operating in 2017, is designed to intercept enemy planes, drones, tactical ballistic missiles, medium to short-range rockets, and cruise missiles fired from up to 300 kilometers away. With each David's Sling costing about $1 million, the defense system, which derives its name from the biblical account of David and Goliath, acts as the middle-tier layer in defense between the Iron Dome and Arrow systems. Both Arrow 2 and 3 are components of Israel's multi-layered missile defense system, operating at different altitudes and possessing different ranges. While Arrow 2, with a range of 100 kilometers, primarily intercepts and destroys short and medium-range ballistic missiles in the upper atmosphere about 50 kilometers from Earth. Arrow 3, with a range of 2,400 kilometers, is an exo-atmospheric hypersonic anti-ballistic missile designed to intercept long-range ballistic missiles as they travel at the top of their arc outside the Earth's atmosphere. Following Iranian strikes of more than 180 ballistic missiles fired at Israel last October, the United States sent the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or THAAD, battery to bolster Israeli air defenses. Working in a similar manner to David's Sling, the THAAD missiles intercept short to intermediate range ballistic missiles in their last stage of flight at around 150 to 200 kilometers. In addition to these, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, for the first time, the Barak Magen aerial defense system has also been operationally employed in the war with Iran. Noteworthy is the fact that all air defense systems are equipped with a limited number of interceptor missiles. But the exact number of interceptor missiles in Israel's air defense system is unknown to the public. In order to protect Israel from Iranian attacks, the United States is shifting military aircrafts and warships into and around the Middle East. Though specific numbers have not been provided, US fighter jets and refueling tankers have been deployed to the region as well. Another critical aspect is the military aid provided by the United States to Israel. On the anniversary of Hamas's attacks on Israel, the Brown University's Costs of War project reported that the United States had spent at least $17.9 billion on military aid to Israel in the 12-month period. The study also reported that Israel is the biggest recipient of US military aid in history, getting $251.2 billion in inflation-adjusted dollars since 1959. Given such air defense capabilities and the benevolence of the United States, it was widely assumed that the Israeli airspace, for all practical purposes, is impenetrable. But the Iranian belligerence has exposed a chink in Israel's armor.
The question at the heart of this raging war between Iran and Israel is this: was Iran barely days, weeks, or maybe months away from producing a nuclear bomb before the first wave of Israeli attacks early on Friday morning on the 13th of June? Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu clearly seems to think so. But here's the interesting bit. Netanyahu has been making similar such claims not for the last decade, not for the last 2 decades, but for the last 3 decades. The fact that Israel has nuclear weapons of its own is the world's worst kept secret. It is a secret because Israel has never officially confirmed that it has nuclear weapons. Iran, on the other hand, has insisted that its nuclear program is entirely peaceful and is meant for civilian purposes, with its nuclear sites open for inspections by the IAEA. Iran is also a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. While Israel is neither a signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, nor are the Israeli nuclear sites open for inspections from the IAEA. Our next report gets you more details.
Since the first wave of attacks on 13th of June, Israel has bombed Iran's top nuclear facilities and has killed at least 14 Iranian nuclear scientists, claiming that these scientists were instrumental in the development of Iranian nuclear weapons and their elimination is a significant blow to the Iranian regime's ability to acquire weapons of mass destruction. Returning early from the Group of 7 summit in Canada on Tuesday, United States President Donald Trump told reporters he believed Iran was very close to building nuclear weapons. The comments echo the claims made on multiple occasions by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for more than 2 decades and repeated by him during the current conflict to justify military action against Iran. But is there any truth to these claims made by Netanyahu and Trump, which is the very basis for starting this war? And are there any parallels to be drawn between the accusations against Iran and the fraudulent allegations of the non-existent weapons of mass destruction used by United States and its allies to attack Iraq in 2003? On 25th of March, Trump's Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, unambiguously told members of the US Congress that Iran was not moving towards building nuclear weapons. She said, and I quote, "The intelligence community continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program he suspended in 2003. It is to be noted that Tehran has often cited a religious edict issued by its Supreme Leader Khamenei in the early 2000s, banning the production of weapons by saying it is forbidden in Islam. When Trump was reminded of Gabbard's testimony, he simply brushed it aside. A day after, the nuclear watchdog, International Atomic Energy Agency's Director General Rafael Grossi was emphatic in his assertion that Iran's alleged violation of its assurances has not led his agency to conclude that Tehran was building bombs. So what explains Israel's insistence that if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time?
Israel is looking for what is known as the Libya model. It wants Iran to fully renounce its nuclear program, including the peaceful dimensions of its nuclear program. And that is something that Iran is not likely to do. It is a signatory of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which entitles Iran to have a peaceful civilian nuclear energy program. And part of the reason, of course, that Iran won't renounce its program is that it sees itself vulnerable to Israeli attack, very much worries that Iran's perceived adversaries will try to weaken the system further.
A couple of days after Israel's first wave of attacks on Iranian nuclear sites, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi had warned that Israel had crossed a new red line in international law and that Iran was launching missiles and drones at Israel in response. Now, things clearly had taken a turn for the worse since the hopeful days in the month of April, when Iran had its first meeting with the United States aimed at reaching a nuclear peace agreement.
I think the Omani foreign minister shuttled between the Iranian and US delegations about 4 times, and the views of both sides were conveyed to each other. It lasted about 2.5 hours, and in my opinion, as a first meeting, it was a productive one. It took place in a calm and positive atmosphere. No inappropriate language was used.
Though Iran has always said its nuclear program is entirely peaceful and not meant to develop a nuclear weapon, a decade-long investigation by the IAEA has found evidence that from the late 1980s until 2003, Iran conducted a range of activities which are relevant to the development of a nuclear explosive device. Subsequently, the Project Ahmad was halted, but Iran continued with some activities until 2009, when Western powers revealed the construction of the Fordo underground enrichment facility. But after that, there were no credible indications of weapons development. According to the 2015 nuclear deal with 6 world powers, Iran accepted restrictions on its nuclear activities and allowed rigorous monitoring by the IAEA's inspectors in return for relief from crippling sanctions. But the deal was abandoned by the United States President Donald Trump during his first term in 2018.
That the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
To which Iran retaliated by increasingly breaching the restrictions, particularly those relating to enrichment. Now the danger is, will this Israeli war, based on unsubstantiated claims, push Iran onto a path of building a nuclear bomb?
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.